many business owners don't quite understand their responsibilities as it relates to issuing the 1099-NEC and 1099 miscellaneous tax forms, which by the way is totally understandable as the rules are quite confusing. Just look at the IRS instructions for completing these forms. It's 12 pages long. So what I've done is I've compiled this video to provide you with everything you need to know related to 1099. So if you continue watching, I'm going to cover what is the 1099 form used for, and are you required to issue a 1099? If you are required, when are the due dates of these forms? What are the penalties for not issuing them? I'll also explain the many exceptions to when you may not need to issue these forms. And I'll touch on how to keep track of this throughout the year to make this process less painful for you in the future. And if you stick around to the end, I'll give you a pro tip on what you can do to avoid issuing 1099s altogether. So I do recommend watching this video in its entirety as it will be relevant to your business. And by the way, before I go into explaining what the forms are used for and if you'd be required to issue one, let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Navi Miraj. I'm a CPA and tax strategist that teaches entrepreneurs how to save thousands of dollars in taxes. I do that by creating free content right here on social media, but I also do it through a course where I convert students from the state of not knowing anything about the responsibilities as a business owner and translate them into tax-savvy entrepreneurs who save thousands of dollars in taxes by implementing powerful tax strategies. You can find out more by clicking the link in the description below or by visiting my website, which is navimuradcpa.com. But let's go on and cover what is the 1099 NEC used for. So anytime your business pays an individual or another business, such as a subcontractor, for services, not for products, but makes these payments for services, and that individual or other business is not an employee of yours, so meaning they're not on your payroll and will not receive a W-2 from your business, you may be responsible for issuing them a 1099 NEC. And I use the word may on purpose because later I'm going to list out all the exceptions when you won't have to issue a 1099 NEC. So this is not for personal payments, okay? If I'm going to get married and hire a photographer, I don't have to issue the photographer a 1099. But if I'm a real estate agent and I hire a photographer to take photos of my property listings as part of my business, then that is a scenario where I may be responsible for issuing the photographer a 1099 because the photographer performed a service for my business and the photographer is not a W-2 employee of mine. Make sense? Let's continue to the 1099 miscellaneous for a quick second. What is the 1099 miscellaneous used for? The 1099 miscellaneous can serve a lot of different purposes, hence the word miscellaneous in the name, but it includes payments for rent, prizes, awards, or other income payments, okay? And I use that term other income payments because that's actually what the IRS refers to it as. You can view the 1099 instructions for more details, and I'll provide the link in the description below as well so you can read them and access that quickly. The due dates of these forms, so the due dates of the 1099 NEC and miscellaneous, and that is generally these forms are due by January 31st of the following year. So for payments I made during 2024, I need to issue the 1099 by January 31st, 2025, okay? And if I don't, what are the penalties for not issuing these forms, okay? The penalties are up to $110 per form. But if it's determined that you intentionally didn't issue a 1099, the minimum penalty is $550 per form. And by the way, the IRS kind of puts you in a tough spot here because no matter how your business is taxed, whether it's a Schedule C or S corporation or partnership, you are asked when preparing your business tax return if you made any payments that require you to file Form 1099. And if so, will you be filing the forms, yes or no? So although many business owners do, don't ignore the 1099 filing requirement. Let me now explain the many exceptions when you may not need to issue these forms. So earlier I used the word may on purpose when I said you may have to issue a 1099 when you send a payment for services rendered to your business. And that is because there's a list of notable exceptions where you do not need to issue a 1099 NEC form. And those exceptions are you paid them less than $600 in a calendar year, or you paid them via credit card or debit card. And the reason for that is the card issuer will report those payments on Form 1099-K, so you don't have to do it on Form 1099-NEC. What about if you paid them via a third-party payment network such as PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App? Well, if you've done so, as long as you confirm with that third-party payment network that you are sending business payments correctly on their platform, then you'll be fine. You won't have to issue the 1099. Let me give you an example of that. So for PayPal and Venmo, you should set up a business account with them and select the goods and services option when sending payments. For Cash App, you should set up a Cash for Business account to send payments and not use a Cash App personal account for business payments. If you set this stuff up properly, that third-party payment network will report the payments on Form 1099-K, alleviating you of the responsibility to issue the 1099-NEC. Another example where you don't need to issue the 1099 is if the vendor's business, whether that be an LLC or corporation, is taxed as an S or a C corporation. Now, the exception to that is if you paid a lawyer or attorney, you still need to issue them a 1099-NEC, even if they are taxed as an S or C corporation, because the IRS just, I don't know, for whatever reason, doesn't trust attorneys for some reason. So what about this next one here? So they are not a citizen or resident of the US, and they do not perform their services in the United States. So this is very common for foreign contractors. If they're not a citizen and they're not a resident of the US, then as long as they don't perform their services in the US, you don't have to issue them a 1099-NEC. Another reason might be they sell merchandise, freight, storage, or similar items, right? If that's all you're buying from them, they didn't perform a service for you, and therefore you don't have to issue that 1099-NEC. So that was a list of exceptions. Let me explain when you actually might need to issue the 1099-NEC. So listen up here, this is important. So basically, if you paid an individual or a business more than $600 via cash, check, wire transfer, ACH, or use Zelle to issue the payment to that individual or business, and that individual or business is not taxed as an S or C corporation, then it is very likely you will need to issue a 1099-NEC. The reason why I mentioned Zelle a moment ago is Zelle is not considered to be one of those third-party payment networks, okay? That's as if you sent someone cash when you use the Zelle sort of system, okay? Now you might be asking yourself, how do I know if the individual or business is taxed as an S or C corporation or not? Well, let me explain how to keep track of this throughout the year to make this process less painful. The following should be your steps, okay? When you're thinking of engaging a subcontractor or issuing a payment that may require a 1099, formally request a Form W-9 to be completed by that individual or business that is providing you the service, okay? If you've never heard of Form W-9, essentially it's a form that businesses will ask you to complete so they know how your business is taxed and whether or not they need to issue your business a 1099 or not, or whether or not they need to withhold income taxes from the payments they will be issuing you. If they refuse to complete the W-9 form, don't hire them, okay? That usually means they are probably doing something shady, like not claiming the income on their taxes. If they complete the W-9, make sure it's signed by them and keep this in your records as evidence to the IRS that you requested it and the vendor completed it and signed it, okay? Now, if you're using bookkeeping software like QuickBooks, when you see the payment come through your bank feed, you'll create a vendor record for the service performed and click a button that will track the payment for you. Then you'll be able to pull reports at the end of the year that tell you which vendors require a 1099 and how much to issue the 1099 for. The W-9 you collected from them will have all the information you need to issue the 1099. This way you're not scrambling in January of the following year trying to figure all this out. Now, there are some state requirements. Everything I just told you just now was related to the federal filing of the 1099s. Some states require you to issue 1099s as well. The good news is most states conform to the federal requirement. So if you use a service provider like QuickBooks Online or tax1099.com, when they file the 1099s for you, you'll be covered at the state level as well. There are some states that want additional information that you don't have to provide to the federal government though, so just be aware of that. And lastly, let me share a pro tip with you. As you may have concluded, try to pay your subcontractors or vendors or whatever service providers you're using with a debit or credit card, and you don't have to worry about issuing 1099s. The credit card company or that third-party payment network, they will do it for you. That said, if you can't, that's fine. Just follow my guidance and you'll be just fine. So if you're watching this video and you like the way I explain this topic, I encourage you to click on the link in the description below or visit my website at navimuradcpa.com to learn even more about the course I mentioned earlier. I had limited time with you in this video, but in the course, I unpack not just tax strategies, but explain to business owners how business taxes work, how accounting works. I teach you how to use QuickBooks Online, plus all of the tax strategies I use with my very own clients in my CPA form. I encourage you to join Melissa, whose savings will be $11,000 per year, or even Sean, who will be saving $6,021 per year, or perhaps Moise, who just started his business and will be saving $4,000 each and every year. If that sounds like something that you want to be a part of, then I'll just see you in the course. If not, I hope you receive value out of this video, and I encourage you to subscribe to learn more in my next video. I'm going to link a video at the end of this one that explains how to complete the Form W-9. You might need to know how to do that for your own business, or if you have vendors that you need to issue 1099s for, you can provide them with this link to the video, and it'll teach them how to complete the Form W-9 no matter how they're taxed, whether it be a LLC, sole proprietor, S corporation, C corporation, partnership. It's quite confusing, and in that video, I'll answer all of their questions. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.